Okay, so this is the first harmonica on the bench this morning. It's Thursday morning, and it's 20 to 10. So what we have here is an old 64 harp that's come in 16 hole. A guy bought it off of eBay and said he had trouble playing the third drawer, and he sent it through. I opened it up, and it's quite apparent really why he's having trouble, especially in the third hole, because it's got a big crack in it, and up here we've got another crack. So we've got to fix that. Actually, there were very slight cracks until I got the reed plates off, because then it really fell apart, and it wasn't apparent from the back that there were cracks. So the guy, when he bought it on eBay, I think he asked if it was cracked, and the guy said no. And it was hard, he didn't really lie to the guy, it was quite hard to tell whether it was cracked or not. But definitely is cracked. There we are, cracked in half in two places. So I'm going to show you how you can fix these. Unfortunately, I have a jig that you may not have at home, but you might be able to make something up. So I'm just going to quickly go through how you repair this comb, and that's it really. So here's to the next video. Okay, so now we've got the three parts separated. What I tend to do is to clean the faces. We don't know how long these have been cracked, and there might be some food stuff and all sorts really in the joint faces, and we need to get them clean. So I use an X-Acto knife, and I just scrape, and you'll see this white powder and stuff coming off of it. So I just go over all the faces with that, just to clean them up. Next thing I then do is I score the faces. I'm going to just score these like this, just to give a better face really for the glue to bite into. And I tend to come down here and score these faces, and I do this on all the faces, every part, every one. So I'm now going to introduce you to my my 16 hole comb jig. Actually, it's not for 16 hole, it can be for 12 hole as well, but I tend not to repair 12 hole combs, because you can get them very cheaply off the website from Hohner. Let me just show you how this works. So these are our comb pieces, and I just assemble these in the jig itself, and it's got a couple of screws. I made this jig. I'm going to say I invented it, but certainly it is to my specifications. And the idea is that you can level up your comb in here, and it sort of takes into consideration, you can adjust it for any warpages in the comb itself. Obviously, if there's a crack, it's because the comb has shrunk in certain places and grown in others, and it basically cracks the wood itself. So I tend to line everything up with the front face. That's how I adjust it, rather than the back face. I tend to do it this way. I've had sort of mixed results really with doing it from the back edge, but the idea is that I can put it in here, and I can adjust it so that it clamps up, and there will be some certain gaps because of the shrinkages, and that's when I'm going to apply the epoxy glue, the epoxy resin, to glue it all shut. And then I basically clamp it all together. I use these clamps, and I put a flat plate across the top, and it clamps it down flat. I use a plate across the back, and it clamps it down flat. So the idea is that like a splint, if you break your leg, we try and clamp it down so that it's dead flat, which really means that we don't have to level it too much. It sort of levels itself. To stop the glue, the epoxy resin sticking onto my jig, which is made of Delrin, to stop it sticking on that, I put in place where I'm going to glue, so there's going to be one glue here, one glue here. What I tend to do is to get some polythene bags, cut it up and lay it down. This one particularly can lay here, and then when I put these on, the glue won't stick the comb to the jig itself. So that's a top tip if you're going to be making a jig. You don't want the glue oozing out and sticking the comb to your jig. You never get it off. So epoxy doesn't stick to this polythene bag, so that's what I use for that. But let me get the glue prepared, and then I'll show you how I clamp it all up. Okay, so we've got our jig ready now to clamp up the comb that's broken. One of the things that I have got here, as I've got a label on it that's fallen off, is a releasing agent. In a previous life I was a tool maker, and I used a lot of this stuff, and it smells wonderful. Not that I use it because it smells wonderful, but I use it. And what I do here is I put this on the face of my jig to stop the epoxy setting on the jig. So I use some polythene on the bottom, but on the top here, on this face, I do use some of this releasing agent. It's very good. So there we are. We put a smattering on there. The next thing we do is I've mixed up some epoxy here. I haven't thinned this down with any heat because I need it quite thick. And I'm going to apply this to each of the faces. Now we're going to clean this up once it's all dried, so we don't need to worry too much. We're just going to get this on all the faces of the comb. Before we even put it in our jig, we're just going to get that really in there nice. Don't put too much on, because it is all going to squirt out the sides. But I'll do that on every face. So I'll do it on this face. Okay, so we've got the epoxy out on all the faces, and we just start laying this together, just gently, in the order that it come apart. Obviously, we don't want to get these around the wrong way. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to line up the front mouthpiece face. So that's my main one, and then I just screw these parts in to clamp it up. So this is how I do this. These are just sort of finger tight really, and it just adds a bit of pressure to the joint. Again, we don't need to go too crazy on the pressure here, because we just need it to just be firm. So that's perfect there. I then lay on my screen that's going to stop it sticking, and then I've got this here. This is a ground bar, steel bar, very, very flat, which I use. I just plop that on the top there to keep it all nice and flat. I try and make it clear because I need to see the back of the plate, and then I just put this little clamp on here, and then this should just clamp it all. That clamps it all together, and I hold it up just so that I've got it all pushed in correctly. And that's good, and I can just tighten these up slightly. You can see all the epoxy squirting out at the back. We're not worried too much about that. You can scrape these off if you like, just to see what they will look like afterwards. And you can see here that it's pretty good. It's pretty good joint here. You can see there, you can barely see the crack. So when that glue dries, you won't really see that it ever was repaired. So that's good enough for now. We've put that in, we screw the ends up, hold it all nice, and it's going to take about a day to dry. So we will put that away so that it dries, and then in the morning I'll show you how we dress it all up. So thanks very much. So now it's been a day for it to set, and we're now going to just take it out of the jig. So here we go, and this is how it looks really. This is the polythene that we put on top, so you can see that that's obviously not sticking anymore. We can loosen the clamps at the back here, and we can take the comb out. This is the bottom part, so you can see here that it doesn't stick. Now what we need to do, it's all stuck well. It looks good. Next job now is to just to dress these up. Gotta get a little Dremel. Okay, so there is the comb all dressed up. It's very simple to clean that up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my granite block. This is my granite block that I use. It's going to be 2 inches thick, very, very flat. It's an engineer's granite block. To that I put on some 400 grit paper, and I'm just going to level the comb now. I'm not going to do it one-handed, but I'm going to level the comb each side. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in here some Type Bond. It's a glue that they use when they make guitars. It's very good glue. It's waterproof. And what I do is I tend to just put little droplets in the screw in the nail holes, and then as I sand it, the sawdust from the wooden comb goes into the holes and fills them up, so that when I put the combs back on, the reed plates back on, the nails have something to bite into and can clamp it up. So that's another thing I'm going to do as well, just to fill those holes. So that's the next job. Okay, so there we are. That's the comb all finished. It's all been sanded flat, very nice and flat now, and it's flat on all surfaces. I filled the holes with the glue and then sanded it, and the sawdust has gone into the holes and filled them, so they're going to be good for putting in the nails back in. So we are going to put the nails back in rather than convert it with screws. So that's it. So that's how we repair a very old 16-hole harmonica, the 64. If we don't want to replace it with a new comb, which are expensive, and these pearwood combs, one is you can't get them anymore, but they do have a sound of their own. So I like the idea of repairing them if we can. We can obviously all buy new things, but there's a certain satisfaction in repairing the comb to its original condition. So there we are, folks. Thanks for watching John Cook Harmonicas.